So, I found the right one, the stasis rifle. Clearly, I was using the wrong tool. Oh no, not that one. That one's the repair tool. Do I even have a stasis rifle? There's the potion cannon. Do we even have it as like a recipe? I started to back up since I got back up to the main area. I don't know. Yeah, let's see it. Let me look it up real quick. If we don't have the propulsion cannon in this one, then I may not worry about it. Because the Ghost Leviathan is the one I really wanted. But also because I don't think I can get a scan off the other ones without wasting some stuff, you know. Yeah, tools list. It may also be something we can get. If we can get them, then that's fine. Let's see. We got. I'm looking at the wiki right now. Stasis rifle. Interesting. It doesn't look like the stasis rifle is used. Or maybe I shouldn't say it. There's pictures, but the pictures aren't of the one area. Of the frozen area. Alright. I'm looking here. Maybe I should ask a different question. Ah. So yeah, you have to cheat it in the game unless otherwise. So okay. So at least I'm not crazy. It's not in the game by default, which sucks. But we did get a scan off of the Ghost Leviathan, and I'm happy with that. I'm not real worried if we can't use a stasis rifle to do it, then I'm not gonna go bother getting a scan of the other stuff because it's I don't know of any other way to do it without having to sit there for another 30 years to have to do it. So it's not something I really want to do. So that being said, we're gonna head over. We're gonna actually let's read the dialogue on it. Let's read about it. We got all the cool leviathans, I should say. It's a this is a massive 60-meter leviathan. Appears to be in the oddly convention of several evolved offshoots. Okay. Shovel-like head, the streamlined head of the shadow leviathan helps it slice through the water as it approaches prey. Beneath its smooth skin is thick head plated that is used like a battering ram to ward off competing shallow leviathans during mating season. Okay, that's kind of cool. They use it to defend themselves. Segmented legs. The legs are covered in a thick segmented exoskeleton similar to an othbot. Okay, yeah. The Leviathan's legs are used less for propulsion which is left to its blade-like tail, and more for hunting prey. The thick legs hold open other overly captured fauna like a cage, while the strong exoskeleton protects the tissue beneath from damage as Leviathan feeds. Biomass is digestion fat track. The Shadow Leviathan's mouth leads directly to its digestion tract, which secretes a highly acid component into his captive prey. This biomass kind of like actually attracts light-seeking. Oh, okay. Or just drawn into draws larger fish. Avoid all costs. Okay. All right, that's kind of cool. Let's see here. We're gonna get back in this, and we're gonna make the journey back up. And while I do, I'll make my final discussions on the game because I'm pretty sure we're reaching the final line. Like I said, I don't know if this is gonna be the final mission or if this is just gonna be one of many missions. Maybe I should just bring the prawn suit with me. So we'll kind of discuss things while I go. I think that this game is more story driven. I really think that there should have been more story though. But let's be real, voice actors are expensive. It takes a lot of organization, so I can see why they probably had some difficulties with it. But I really think that they could have really cracked open this idea of conversing with an alien, especially an alien race that is more intelligently driven and less emotionally driven. And it might even be kind of cool because it clearly has some similarities with humans to some extent as far as the emotional capacity they used to have, right? So it'd be kind of cool if you could have it to where he starts kind of seeing the primitive side that was their own race as well. And it might be kind of interesting where he's like looking back and saying, okay, well, maybe these things weren't necessarily bad things. And he kind of indicates that some things that were of the past are not that bad, like dreams and like having, joking and stuff. But I think it'd be kind of cool if he started thinking more on that. It'd also be cool if we learned that the architects were what they were like before their history, like learning a little bit about actual history, even if it didn't come out to be anything useful. But just the idea that they had, like, because they clearly probably didn't have they weren't perfect. They probably had their downsides, like how human history has got some dark sides to it, right? Some essentially poor, tasteful things we've done, right? Then, you can kind of see that where they've learned from their mistakes, why they did that, like why they chose to create soldiers versus just being warlike themselves. Maybe you might even see that their body really doesn't look very combat driven. It's capable enough to probably take down a human pretty easily, right? But they're not really like designed for the sake of combat, right? So maybe you can make it to where as a theory or conversational aspect where they intentionally took out like claws and teeth and things that would be used to go beyond self-defense, like their warlike traits, or they removed those and put them in the warpers and stuff, or like the creatures like the warpers, because those things can be controlled, deactivated, and don't act on a case of vengeance or emotional dysfunction, versus them, they said, okay, well, we can't be a warlock like this. It's one thing to be self-defense, defend yourself, but it's another thing to like use your ability to like murder people, right? So it could be that they were like that. They were like, okay, well, we can't do this. We can't be this way. We have to be better. And there could have been an incident where that was an issue where they're like, okay, we got to do better. I don't know. Like I said, I think there could have been more conversations that could have been had. I do feel like it's a very quiet game for the most part. The Leviathans were okay, but I would have liked a few more. We got a lot of tame ones, which is great, but we didn't get much variety as far as that. Like, the Shadow Leviathan was probably my favorite. It's definitely a very interesting one, and it looks unique, and it still kind of has that Subnautica kind of vibe to it. The other ones that we have, the crab-like ones or lobster ones, they're cool, but I kind of wish there was a different void. If the void creature had been essentially a different creature, that isn't just reskinned, because that's the difference. They're basically the same thing. The difference is that one's all scarred up and beat up and looks more mangled, or if they wanted to go with a mangled look, put a Shadow Leviathan out there too and make it seem like that's where like the elderly go, because like the elderly Leviathans go there to like survive. Like, obviously, the Shadow Leviathan would be, like, below and stuff. And the idea behind it, I could see him moving over there. The idea behind it is that, like, when they get older, they're a little bit more at risk of becoming an issue, right? So they start trying to, like fish in the dark more and using the darkness to their advantage because they're older, and the younger like specimens need better lighting. All right. Hey, Alan, what's up? It's kind of cold. Oh, yeah? I'm happy to help with that. What is this that you're doing? Can I scan? Get the power going? He moves quickly. Hold up, I only have 2 feet. I'm coming. What are you doing? Can I scan this stuff? What's you need? Now, we're gonna save here. So I'm pretty sure we're done doing everything I could think of, and obviously it'll probably just put us back here. But I think that the one thing I like about this game, like this storyline, is there is a potential for it. I think it would be fantastic to move, like, because obviously we have Subnautica 3 coming out and stuff, right? I think it'd be kind of cool if they split off and have Subnautica 1, like basic survival of Subnautica, going on about how people are trying to terraform it. Because let's be real, there's probably a lot of time in between this point in the game and the first game where Ateria has come and tried to like make civilizations or like build bases of operations. And so you could basically make it where one is the survival aspect where they're telling the scientists, hey, go to this area, set up base, here's your goals, do some research, right? And then you can sprinkle in some like kind of suspicious kind of behavior from Ateria, but nothing crazy, because you're just an employee that kind of follows the rules, right? And then follow this story in its own thing, as Sub-Zero, where you're following Sam's sister, basically Robin, where she's trying to essentially do all the, make right with the aliens and stuff, right? And there's an entire like survival situation where you're on a different planet. It may not be water-like. Maybe it's like different things. You can always make it water-like too. But like the idea behind it is like the concept is that you're going through the story of like the architects. What will happen if they return? Because there's the issue too. When they return, will they decide that humans are not good enough and therefore try to eliminate them, that they are not cool enough or important enough? And if they don't, then how are they going to keep humans in line? Because let's be real, humans are not very civil amongst themselves, let alone be civil with something that is smarter, stronger, and unknown, right? The 3 biggest things that humans fear, right? So how will you do that? How will you kind of worm them into it, right? And granted, the architectures are smart, but humans are barbaric in their like their ways of being way. So, this would be an interesting story on how they like try to figure out how they deal with that, right? And like even if they lived in a world in a time frame when the humans are ready for alien contact and stuff, there's still gonna be little bumps in the road. So you could do a whole story where this is the diplomatic part, and there's a little bit of this information is happening in the other one, and vice versa. And you can have these little crossover informations, like how they were mentioning, like different things from the first time they found the Leviathans. Like they had the posters and the references and stuff, right? So you could still kind of do that and kind of play into it without it being overly one way or overly the other way. So I think that'd be kind of cool. I think it would be a very way, like I do think the story is good. It's got lots of potential. I do feel like it wasn't as compact. I think it would have been neat if, because I know when they were testing it and they were doing it, I liked the fact that Sam was alive and was contacting her. It would have been cooler if she was that Sam was talking to you, and you find out later that it's not Sam, that it's an AI, that it's her girlfriend. using her voice to kind of trick you into helping her, not because for malicious intent, but because Eteria is dangerous and they were trying to, you know, cater to the evil organization while also not getting you killed, you know, that kind of thing. Trying to play both sides while also still making them evil in that regard. And I think that would make it really horrible because, like, story-wise, that would make you devastated for Robin because she gets to hear her sister's voice thinking, oh, they just told me she died, only to realize, no, that she's actually dead. And then to find out how she died will be devastating because we've got Robin here, and Robin's angry and wants vengeance, but she's already kind of went through the mourning process, which is, you know, nice and all for the most part for her, but it makes it to where it doesn't give as much drama to it. I think if she had this hope, this false hope that she would have found her sister, or maybe she was, or when she came to the planet, she was kind of mourning her and kind of already had that thing, and then she got this false hope, got this, you know, this happiness, and then her life got crumbled again. Because here's the thing. Why? Because it adds a little bit of drama, but also it would also make her anger towards Eteria even more angry, because then they are impersonating her, making a mockery of her sister in more ways than one. They mocked her by trying to, you know, by trying to get rid of her silently. You know, they mocked her by essentially playing, you know, puppeteering her voice to her mourning sister, you know. And then on top of that, they're trying to cover up stuff to boot. So that would give her even more of a reason to hate them. And it could even be a good way for Alan to hate them more. Because Alan didn't trust them, and he clearly doesn't like them because they don't have any... Their morals or their ideals don't line up with him. You know, they don't benefit him any because they are only looking for the glory of finding an alien race, not actually open-minded to what that meant. That's why he likes Robin, for instance, is that she's open-minded to it, and she's more interested and fascinated by him and his culture, and she's open-minded. She wants to learn about him and his people and help him. She doesn't really want the fame, the glory, and all this stuff. She really just generally wants it for the name. She's in it for the heart of the game kind of thing, you know, the love of the sport kind of thing. But I think that they could have done some really dramatic things like that. I think that would have made her even more mad. It could have even made Alan mad, because Alan would have thought, maybe he thought logically, why would humans do that? Why would you pretend to be somebody or not? Because if you think about it, the precursors have never lied about who they are. I mean, Alan withheld his identity, but that's because he had it was his fault, you know. So he had that kind of guilt. But as a race, they don't do that, right? The Warpers, for instance, give warnings. They have they announce their protocols to each other, Grant over Milwaukee, but it's the same thing. The gun gives its warning of shooting it down. They give warnings when they really didn't need to do that, but they did, right? This is the other thing too. I kept wondering why they would need a gun in the first place if their whole society works on a hive mind situation, which might be another cool thing. Off topic, is that maybe there are other alien races that existed with the precursors at the time, which would explain the gun. Because I really doubt any precursor individual is going to try and revolt against their people if they're all hive mind truly and they all work together. So that might have been a nice cool can of worms. But my point being is they could have really laid on thick and really given them a reason to dislike them. Because for Alan, it would seem illogical to hurt somebody by essentially imposing, pretending to be something they're not. Because even though Alan lied to us about who he was, he never pretended to be anything but who he was. You know, he was a precursor. He took a name because it made it easy for us. He talked to us honestly, outside of the fact that he didn't give the information that it was his fault that the pathogen got out. You know, so which we didn't really hold against him because accidents happen, right? But and obviously it really seemed to bother him. But he didn't he didn't try to impersonate our sister. He didn't try to, impersonate anyone and try to slander them in a way by pretending to be them, right? So that to me kind of really screams potential right there, So it could have been something that he's that's barbaric. How could they do that? And then Robin can go into the details with him about why humans can be dangerous as well as positive. And so both of them can have a conversation about the pros and cons of each of the races, right? The precursors might have a superiority complex where they think that they're better than everybody else, and they are theoretically smarter, more capable, but they're not infallible, you know? And then with humans, it's the fact that they react when they want to get what they want, they act like a spoiled child, and they will do very dirty tactics to get what they want, especially when it comes to organizations. Anyways, my point being is, I don't think this was a bad game. If I give it a rating, I'd give it like a C or a B, really. But there is a lot of potential, like story-wise, for what could be done. I don't know what's gonna happen, but we're gonna see what the final ending. Sorry, I didn't mean to rant for so long. Let's get in here and see what's in store. These doors were more laggy than they were in the first game. Like at start, when they get into it and they finally start like loading, it's not that bad. It is brighter though, it seems. All right. Hello, man. It's so snowy. Oh my gosh, it's so snowy. Members are setting, yeah. I do think I understand that. That's fair. This is really cool. Is this what their ships look like? Or is this like a helicopter? Oh. He moves so quickly. I like how it's compatible with our anatomy as well. I'm assuming. Oh, it's these things. These the ones that are down. It'd be kind of cool if we could get a game with this where we can manipulate things, even if the manipulation was only cutscene based. Alan, look! I almost dropped it on its head. Aren't you proud of me? Look, no hands. It'd be kind of cool if you commentaried on the fact that we're not very good at this. Be like, wow, you didn't kill yourself the first prize. That's pretty good. I'm gonna say saying very good is not what I was meaning. I was meaning like maybe a little bit of a sassy kind of praise. Not real, like, okay, good, whatever, come on over here. Alright. Okay. I'm coming. The other thing too is, will Otero track my gear with me if I since I'm carrying tools with me, or that I'm wearing their suit? That's a concern. It's kind of cool. Ah, so this is the gate, and this is the ship. I see. Okay. I'm coming. Also, I kind of I have a worry. What if Robin goes? Say they ever make a game where this takes place again, where it's like Subnautica 3 or something, or Subnautica 2, whatever, and they take Robin. I have a worry that Robin would die at some point, and then Robin would be put into machine. You know, I don't think it's impossible, but I have a feeling that would happen. But it also would be very fascinating. It'd also be interesting if they were to put Robin into a machine body, that she wouldn't look like them. That she'd just look like a human with the arms kind of thing. Because I think they custom built their bodies to their fitting. But when they first started, I think they probably, my theory, my feeling on it was the way they described it in the chat, the PDAs, or how he talked about it, was that when they first started, they were just using their basic, like a remaking of their own body in robotic form, and then they they pulled and cherry picked things as they went along. All right, beam me up, Scotty. Ooh, that hurt. Oh. Aww. Okay. I like how he's like, I would have helped you up, but I can't. Like, okay, that's understandable. I don't think that you're gonna be able to brace yourself with that. I think you should sit down. I mean, it is zero gravity, so maybe it won't matter. But I personally think I would sit down and cross my legs around that pole. I'd be scared. I mean, like, the elevator already messed me up. I don't need to question whether this is gonna throw me back into his chest or not. Just saying. That's pretty. Oh, wow. Oh. And if there are more of you, will we help you recover them? I think I see things down there, but I can't tell if it's actually the precursors down there or if it's just robots. Because it could be both. They could have like assistant robots and stuff for where they're at. Similarly, to have like little spider robots for cleaning and maintenance. That would be kind of cool if there is none of them, or if they're all like sleeping or whatever, that the little maintenance robots are running around, still keeping the city in pristine condition, considering everything. And there we go. End of the story. I said I would scan the other ones, but if there's no stasis rifle, there's really no point. That's the end of it. We're gonna start doing. Did you really have to smack the wall? So violent. Also, today's like roster. I only put Subnautica, Guild Wars, and Skyrim. So I'll be doing Guild Wars next, and then it'll be Skyrim. Skyrim is just gonna be there in case I feel like doing more. Probably will. But yeah, they don't have the stasis rifle in the Subnautica Zero. I looked it up. The only way to get it is through cheats. And I know, so there's no way to really hold the Leviathans in place. So you'd have to bait them with, your prawn suit or your truck, which means you have to let them have it while you proceed to scan them. That's what people used to do with the Reaper Leviathan all the time. But I didn't want to do that because I spent a lot of time and effort on that gear and stuff. I'm not gonna do that. Sorry, and I do apologize for ranting a lot, but I kind of want to wrap up all of my thoughts on the game so far. I think it's still pretty good. I still think Subnautica is the first one was better because there's more to it. It took longer. Ghost gave it a 6 out of 10. I gave it a B because the story was good. it really opens a can of worms of what could be coming if they choose to continue with this. But I do feel like there could have been more voice acting, more like talks. I really did like the crew and the staff they had. Like, I liked Fred and everything. I really want to know what happened to Fred and all of them. Did they send them home? Because clearly we know that only 2 people died. We know that Sam died and somebody else died. But did they send the others home? Like, they only ever mentioned that they died in an accident. I feel like they just sent them home. We heard about the Mercury as well. The Mercury would have been cool too. I think it'd be cool if there was other ships as well, because this part of the spaceship, this part of the solar system had been losing people a lot, right? They mentioned it in the first game in Subnautica 1, where it's not unusual for ships to get lost in the solar system, because it's not unusual for ships to crash, and especially not on planets with different like levels of like atmospheres and stuff. So why people had ships go missing, they never really connected it back to 45, 46B. It was just kind of like a lost at sea kind of thing. Like, it was a sad thing, but it was never really something that was surprising. So my point is that they could have really brought out a lot more than just Mercury 1. I think it'd been cool if they had other ships, other situations where it really kind of brought out the how many ships actually lost, because by the way the lore makes it seem is there were a lot of ships throughout the times that had been lost, and they just never really noticed what they were, you know what I mean? Like, they would never connected the dots until they found the shipwrecks. And that tends to be the case, right? Even with modern day ships and stuff, they found like, graveyards of ships and stuff, and they didn't know where these ships went through history. They just knew that, okay, this ship disappeared this time frame, never saw from again, whatever. Right, and then they've later, as the years go by, and we got subs and people diving for them, they started finding the ships, and they started realizing making theories as to how they got over there, right? The same thing has happened with this. So they have like find graveyards and stuff. So I think it'd been cool if Sub-Zero had went into more of the graveyards and stuff. And it could have also explained, maybe there's a lot more smaller ships that landed in below zero, because the gun shot them down, but because they are smaller and moving faster, they flew farther in their descent. Versus the Aurora being a bigger thing, because there was a lot of people in the Aurora, and they were going to build a phase gate. So they were off doing their own little thing, And they could have really kind of, like, reeled that in. So yeah, I think it was pretty good. I think it had potential. I don't think it was as fun as Subnautica, because it didn't have a lot of tasks to do. It didn't have a lot of like as much lore depth as it could have. It could have really dipped into it. It had lots of open endings, but it really didn't tie anything in, right? And like, I think the Subnautica one had a lot more dread. I didn't feel as much dread with this one, especially with like the Leviathans and things, because I could zap the Leviathans away, and I got the zapper pretty early on, and it didn't really. I don't know. I just feel like there wasn't much variety with the Leviathans. I think that the Void Leviathan should have been different, or it should have been a different variation. Well, like, they had like 2 Leviathans that are basically the same, but they only had 3 really aggressive Leviathans. And in Subnautica 1, they had like 5. They had the Ghost Leviathan, they had Reaper, they had the Emperor. Yeah, well, it's like there's just so much more things that try to kill you in Subnautica 1 than in Sub-Zero. And like I said, Sub-Zero was just trying to be more story-driven and more cozy. And it does make sense that they would pick the North Pole to do the research if it was safer, right? Industry-wise. But, and that's fine, I get that, but like, because a company would pick the safer route, right? They wouldn't pick putting it in the crater. Even though, there's more stuff in the crater. It's very interesting. But, like, I think that it just didn't have... The Leviathans weren't very scary, but if they wanted to go with more stories, I really would have liked more plot. I would have liked, like, maybe dialogues or PDAs about how people are getting sent home. Maybe Fred could kind of give his final thoughts on it. Maybe... I don't know if the other person who died with Sam was her girlfriend. Might have been, because I don't remember if they actually said who it was. But, like, it could have been interesting if they all had their farewells. Some of them had like mixed feelings about it. Some of them could have been like, okay, well, bigger, better things, along the way, that kind of thing. And maybe they all reacted to Sam's death more because they seem to be Sam's friends, but like only one of the former employees of the company contacted you about it. You know what I mean? And the only she seemed to be really upset about it was Lilith, right? And I think it'd been neat if you find logs of where they're privately dealing with it, the aftermath of like the loss of Sam and how it makes him feel. And then it could have also been, well, they're sending us home. It's just some of them could have been like, I'm relieved to be sent home because the place doesn't feel the same without Sam. Some people could have gotten more distrustful. Some of them could have seen it as an opportunity for bigger, better things for them, that kind of thing. Like I said, it could have been interesting because honestly, the only one who seems affected by her death is Robin, and Robin doesn't even seem that affected as much as she seems angry or vengeful with Tyria. And really, they talked about like they were tampering with the virus and stuff, but they really didn't explain what they were going to do with it. Were they going to sell to the highest bidder? Were they making a weapon? Were they really trying to cure something? Were they trying to make superhumans? Like, what was the deal? They kind of implied that they were tampering with it and mutating it and doing something with it. And they talked about the pros of it a lot, but they never really mentioned the cons. But Robin mentioned the cons. But they never said specifically what the cons were. Like, it'd been different if they were working to try and make superhumans for the elites to have. Because that could be a good thing right there, right? So, because, like, on paper, curing all the diseases and making people healthy sounds good, right? Except that if the rich are funding it, they'll want it for themselves and they won't want the poor or the people that they're not affiliated with or people who are not their employees to have it. Then you have people fighting over the immortality elixir kind of thing. And if people are weaponizing it, then you have people trying to buy this weapon, which then points the gun in everyone's direction, which then you go back to the other drastic thing, They never really mentioned it, but they kind of implied both those things kind of happening instead of it kind of being more pointed. I think it would have been interesting if some people, if there was more like a file on what Tyria. It would have been nice if Robin had found files on what they actually planned to do. So all of the NPCs who were in the background didn't know the full extent. Her sister just drew a conclusion, and her conclusion turned to be right. But it would have been interesting if Robin had found out that not only was her sister right, but like it would have been so much worse. Because it'd been interesting if her sister thought, okay, they're going to take this virus and they're going to sell it to the highest bidder. Only for Robin to find paperwork from Tyria saying that they were going to try and make this virus, and then they were going to kill an entire planet and genocide it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's still kind of in that line, so Sam was still thinking on the right track, but she wasn't thinking as big enough as that. And that would be kind of interesting if Robin has this thought. She's like, I can't, if Sam had known the full extent, this would have been devastating for Sam. And then Alan could have said, well, maybe it's good that she didn't know and she just died doing what she could do, right? Like she died a hero without knowing the full ramifications of what she avoided. It's kind of like maybe Alan could make a comment, like talk about how Sam thought she was dodging a shotgun bullet when it was really a bazooka, but like she died doing the right thing without having to know the full ramifications of it. And Alan can make a comment saying that if she had known that this essentially a bazooka was being faced at her instead of it being the shotgun, it probably would have made her more scared and she may have been hesitant to act. So he could have made it kind of as a comment of it being kind of a mercy. You know what I mean? I've seen like kind of like stories play that kind of role where it's like the hero still is the hero, but the hero had no idea how bad like it was gonna get if they hadn't stepped in, which made their sacrifice easier because then they didn't have to know the full ramification of how the evil big bad is, but at the same time it made their sacrifice way more important to history, because that tends to be the case in history. There's several instances where that happens, where someone stood up and said, I'm not going to stand for this, and then they revolted only for them to for facts to come out later that the situation would have been so much worse, and that the hero of the story didn't know that it was going to be that bad. They just knew it was bad enough that it was worth dying for or fighting for. Anyways, I'm sorry, I'm ranting too much for it, but
so last question: how do you
I like it. I really like underwater stuff. I really want more underwater stuff. I think it's just fun. It's really hard to come up with good underwater mechanics, and they did really good, giving you that mobility where you're still quick. In both games, they made it to where you can still kind of move quickly, but you're not moving quickly enough that you're superhuman. But you kind of have this sluggish movement a little bit. I think it was very realistic, very good. I did think getting on the glaciers in this one was a little bit glitchier, but I don't really care as much because I get it. But they did better with the terraforming, I think, compared to the first game, which didn't have much land anyways. So they did improve on that, and they improved on like the looks and the aesthetics and the textures and things. So there was improvements there. But yeah, I think it was pretty good. Like I said, I give it a B. I still think Subnautica 1 is still better, but I still don't think it was as bad as people made it seem to be when it first came out. Anyways, we are going to be moving to Guild Wars 1 now. So hold on while I swap.
And we can just dance the night away until we get no more. Shake all the hurt away so you can feel and forget who you used